Yay Networks.
Gummy vitamins aren't just for kids anymore. They are marketed to adults. They extend way beyond kids' vitamins with all types of claims about potency and essential nutrients. So today we break it down about just how these candy-like supplements actually measure up.
I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about.
This week's episode is a pretty light topic. It is gummy vitamins, and not just gummy vitamins, but gummy vitamins, minerals, gummy supplements of all types. And for years, chewable vitamins or gummy vitamins were really relegated to the kids section of any type of vitamin aisle at the grocery store or supplements or online or anything. But now there's so many. I went to a couple of different stores just to kind of like seek out and see like what's actually on shelves. And when I went to Target, I was in there probably a good 40 minutes turning over every product and looking. There was just so many. And that was at Target, not even a full dedicated supplement store. That was just the vitamin aisle there. So it's overwhelming, and we want to believe, especially if someone is not a big pill person, if we don't love swallowing these, or maybe we're a sweets person and we feel like it's kind of a double benefit. If I can get my nutrients and also something that feels or tastes a little bit like candy, it seems like a win-win. So today we're going to unravel what's going on with gummy supplements. Are they really worth it? And how we can tell, how do they measure up? So as I mentioned, this goes way beyond just gummy vitamins. We'll see gummy vitamin, multivitamins, yes. We see vitamin D3 gummies. We see fish oil gummies, melatonin gummies. There's even collagen gummies. So it just goes on and on and on. Pretty much for every type of supplement, you can find like apple cider vinegar gummies. So are these really worth it? Are they giving us the nutrients that we need? Are they a replacement for that real supplement, or how are they really just more sugar? So the first thing that I would say to do on any of these is just what I would say to do with a regular food label, nutrition label. So we're always going to be marketed to on the front of the package. If it's something that's in any way nutritious, remotely nutritious, or they're trying to convince us that it is, of course, that marketing is right there on the front of the label. Things that might say whole grain, or some indication that maybe sugar is lower or low carb, or especially keto, because there's really not any specific guidelines of like numbers of carbs and stuff for keto that like food makers have to comply with. So there's a lot of marketing on the front of these packages to us. But when we turn it over, we look at the ingredient list and we look at the nutrition facts label. We start to see, what are we really working with? What's actually in here? And how much of these things are in here. So normally on a food label, we're going to look at the ingredients. Are we seeing any artificial sweeteners? Are we seeing whatever it might be, white flours, different things that we might want to try to have less of, and what do we want to have more of? And same type of a thing, do that on your supplements. Don't just believe what it's telling us on the front. Turn it over and familiarize yourself with what the recommended dosage is of this particular supplement. And so there's some really good websites that you can put in whatever the supplement that you're looking for is, and it will give you just the full breakdown of what that supplement is used for, how it works, if there's any other interactions with medications, with other supplements, if it might affect lab work, if there's any things to be cautious about with that supplement, and it will have the dosage. WebMD is one that I found that is a great free resource. So you can go into WebMD, you can type in whatever that supplement is, and it's actually pulling a lot of the research, a lot of the data that's often in other paid websites. So there's one that we use a lot that's called Natural Medicine Database, but it's something that's a paid subscription-based website. But WebMD pulls almost all of that information into their platform, and it's free. So first thing I would say is familiarize yourself with what is the recommended dosage of that supplement that you're looking for. So for example, I had some product that was sent to me as a sample, and it was melatonin. And I know that my dad has been taking melatonin, at night, and this was melatonin gummies. And I also know that he has a sweet tooth. So this was a perfect example of kind of like what not to do. So I was there this past week. I was like, hey, Dad, I got these, and it's a good brand. I don't want to say the brand because they have a lot of other really good products. But I said, hey, Dad, I got this melatonin, and I've never really, I don't take it. It's not something I recommend on a regular basis to clients. But knowing that he took it I brought it to him, and he said he turns it over first thing. And he's like, oh, there's only 1.5 grams. The one that I take has 5 grams. And so immediately I was like, wow, that's really, that's exactly what we're talking about. What is the dosage that you need and how much of it is in these gummies? So for example, there's one that is collagen gummies. They're made by Nature Made. Nature Made has a lot of really good products. They have really good other lines of supplements, but they're collagen gummies. Each one has just about 5 calories and 1 gram of sugar. So it's not crazy. The ingredients are tapioca syrup and cane sugar. So they're really just sugar for the most part, but they only have 100 milligrams of collagen. A standard dosage that we want is 10 grams, which is 10,000 milligrams. So that means in order to get the amount of collagen that I would want as just a minimal amount, a minimum amount that we would say, if you're going to take collagen to make it worth it, let's get at least 10 grams. You would have to eat 100 of those Nature Made collagen gummies. Now, if you don't know what that reference point is, you turn it over, you're like, oh, 100 milligrams of collagen, that sounds like a lot, until you realize that it's 10 grams, which is 10,000 milligrams. So I'm not going to go through the dosage that's recommended for these because it really just goes on and on and on, because it isn't just that we're looking at omega-3 gummies or vitamin D gummies, but there's a gummy for pretty much every type of supplement. So again, if it's something that you feel like you're interested in taking, familiarize yourself, educate yourself on what is the recommended dosage, start there. And then in the case of something like collagen, it is a powder. It dissolves well, doesn't really have a taste or an odor. You can really mix it into coffee, smoothie, even sauces, soups, anything like that. So in that case, it's not really hard to supplement with that 10 grams of collagen that we need. We don't really need something like a gummy. And I think to that point, none of these gummies, the gummy or chewable supplements that we're talking about, almost said candies, none of these do we really need. So I would say that the ones that are actually higher potency, lower sugar, I would say if you're going to have these, you're going to choose these either over real food, or in the case where maybe real food, you're not going to get it through real food, so you're going to take a supplement. Why not just go ahead and take that capsule or whatever it is that's going to give you that higher concentration? And so in the ones that actually, the gummies that we'll talk about that are really higher potency, I would say it's when you are looking for something that either you don't like swallowing pills, or you might want to take it at night. It sort of, again, gives you that little bit of a sweet treat you feel, but it's also giving you some other added nutritional benefit. So lots of, I would say almost all of the gummy supplements fall under that category of they're just not worth it. Most of the ones that I was looking at, even just in regular stores, not supplement stores, most of them at least were using things like natural fruit and vegetable juices for color. They were using, so that they weren't having like the red 40 and the artificial food dyes. Even the ones that are made with sugar, that one I was just telling you about, the Nature Made collagen gummies, each little gummy, and they weren't tiny, they were kind of like, they're probably about the same size as maybe a regular gumdrop, 1 gram of sugar. It's not crazy. So when you're looking at the gummy supplements, if you have, 1 gram, 2 grams of sugar, it's going to be added sugar in there. It's not going to be naturally occurring sugars almost ever. So know that it is added sugar. But if it's 1 gram, 2 grams of added sugar, and you're doing one gummy candy and it's going to give you your day's worth of vitamin D, that might be a trade-off that you're willing to make. So I wouldn't say that we necessarily have to look for gummies that are sugar-free. However, if we can find some that don't have sugar, they're sweetened with the natural plant-based sweeteners, and they're high potency, even better. What I would say to steer clear of, before I get into the ones I would say these are some good ones, what I would say to steer clear of is the ones that do have those food dyes. My gosh, it's just not worth it. So the brand One A Day. The brand One A Day actually in websites that are independent websites that test for potency. Is this product true to label? Does it dissolve properly? All the stuff to determine if a product is a really good quality product or not. When it comes to the One A Day regular vitamins, like One A Day Men, One A Day Women, that brand and those types of products, the pill form, always passes. It's always at the top of the list with flying colors. The One A Day Chewies, though, the One A Day, they call it Vita Cravings. Their teen gummies was a great example of what not to do. So again, within this one brand, the One A Day vitamins, One A Day Men or Women, that's the regular tablet. That is always at the top. It's always at the, yes, it's recommended. It's a good product. It doesn't have any contaminants. It dissolves properly, all of that good stuff. But their teen gummies, these chewables, they're made with blue number 1, red number 40, yellow number 5. So, and when we look at the vitamins and minerals, they're lower potency. They have about 62% to 83% of most of the vitamins and minerals, only about 8% of the calcium. Now, it did have 100% of vitamin B12 and biotin, but that was for two gummies, only 62 to 83% of most vitamins and minerals. So not only are we not getting a really high potency multivitamin, we're also getting 3 grams of sugar in that, which is, not the end of the world, but all those artificial colors, like we just don't need it. Another that I would say we can do better is Viactive. And this is the caramel type, where they have like little chocolate or caramel type chews. Not quite a gummy, but still a chew. And these are the calcium chews. And again, each one 15 calories, 1 gram of sugar. So it's really not much there. But the ingredients just aren't good quality. Sugar, corn syrup, hydrogenated oils, corn syrup solids, and then sweetened condensed milk, which is basically just milk and sugar. So even though they're only 15 calories, 1 gram of sugar, they are giving us 500 milligrams of calcium with a dose of D and K. All of that is good. But sugar, corn syrup, hydrogenated oils, corn syrup solids, sweetened condensed milk, if we're doing that on a regular basis to get our calcium, it's not ideal. Now, if that was the only option out there and that got someone to take their calcium on a regular basis, I might be like, okay, because it's such a small amount. But there's a product that I really like better, that if you are doing something like the Viactive Chews or like the generic version of those, try this one. It's called Adora, Adora. And it's basically like a disc of chocolate. And they have like a dark chocolate and they have a milk chocolate. Think of it as like a little bit lower quality chocolate than something like your Dove Promises. So they're a little bit waxier. They're not the ideal, like it's not going to be like super high quality, like melt in your mouth chocolate. But I would say, in spite of the fact that it's giving us 500 milligrams of calcium in every little disc and a hefty dose of our vitamin D, it's pretty good for a chocolate supplement that's also giving us all those nutrients. And the ingredients in here are just chocolate liqueur, sugar, cocoa butter, vanilla extract. So each one, 30 calories, 2 grams of sugar. So they still have that sugar, but the ingredients are just a cleaner label, cleaner ingredient list. So again, we're talking chocolate there. It's not really a gummy, but on the topic of those, the Viactive, the little chewables, the caramel style or chocolate chewables, the ingredients just aren't great. Try that Adora. And I promise you, if you've been enjoying your Viactive, you're going to really, really like that Adora. I'd like to take a minute to talk about Billy, sponsor of this week's podcast and an Allure Best of Beauty winner. Self-care and routine are more important than ever. So whatever you're using to get ready for the day should leave you feeling amazing. Billy has recreated everyday essentials by delivering premium razors and high-performing body care directly to you. Go to mybilly.com to get their crazy affordable starter kit that includes their award-winning razor, 2 precision 5-blade refill cartridges, and a cult favorite magnetic holder. I love Billy's products, and you will too. They leave our skin feeling just so soft. So say no to paying a pink tax for a less than optimal razor. Instead, go to mybilly.com/fueled to get the best razor you will ever own while also supporting the show. Billy is half the price of other razors, plus free shipping always. Just go to mybillie.com/fueled. That's spelled mybillie.com/fueled. That's mybillie.com/fueled. So when we talk about, what do we want? What is kind of like a good standard if we're talking about gummy supplements? And I mentioned earlier about Nature Made. They have the collagen gummies, and Nature Made, again, has a good product line. They have, rigorous testing, rigorous standards. And so Nature Made's not a bad product line. And that one a day, they're always at the top for the men and women multi, but their teen gummies just aren't great. So even within a brand, we see there's a lot of variation. So another great example is Vital Proteins. I use Vital Proteins collagen on a daily basis. Every single day, I actually usually do 20 grams of Vital Proteins collagen, and I'm using it for joint and tendon health. And then we've done an entire podcast on collagen. If you scroll back through the Fueled Wellness library, you'll see entire podcast covering nothing but collagen. So I don't want to get in the weeds on that, but I was really excited to see that Vital Proteins has this entire line of all types of different gummies. And I was like, oh, fantastic, because they've got a really great line of collagen and all different kinds of variations. There's marine-based, there's bovine-based collagen. They have a lot of diversity in their product line. So I was really happy to see that they were coming out with their gummy line. However, sort of like these others that we've talked about, the potency of them was really, really low. So they didn't really have questionable ingredients, but the number that you would have to take, the sheer number, the volume of gummies that you would have to take to have a significant dosage, it just would have been way too much. So again, even within brands that are trusted, don't assume that something like the gummy version is going to be as good as the original. So when we're looking at, okay, what's kind of the standard, what's a good model of what we do want in a gummy supplement? There's actually 3 I'm going to share with y'all, and all 3 of these are the same brand. They are Nordic Naturals, and I've recommended Nordic Naturals as a fish oil supplement before, just a straight regular capsule for fish oil. They are a very reputable company. They make their testing, their product testing, kind of their spec sheets, kind of the behind the scenes science that goes into putting out their supplement line. They make this public. So they produce and they show and they reveal kind of all the back end that is looking at their quality control metrics. I also want to be super clear. Of course, Nordic Naturals is not sponsoring this. They are not paying for us to say this, but it happens that when I'm looking at, wow, here's some really good high quality products that are high potency, and also the ingredient list is really good, they all happen to be the Nordic Naturals. That's not to say they're the only ones out there, y'all. So depending on if you're at a specific vitamin shop, or you're at a GNC, or you're at some other type of dedicated supplement store, or you're seeing other product lines in your stores that I'm not turning over in our stores here, there's going to be others. But these are just some like really good examples of products that are high potency that I would recommend. So Nordic Naturals has a vitamin D3 gummy. So when we look at vitamin D, the type of vitamin D that we want to supplement with is D3. It's the type that is best absorbed by our bodies. And when we look at who needs vitamin D, we can get our levels checked. So you can ask your doctor to check your blood levels of vitamin D. It's also one that if you take about 1,000 IUs, international units a day, for most people, that's going to be fine. You could just go ahead and take it proactively anyway. If you're not getting at least a good 15, 20 minutes outside, middle of the day, in direct sunlight, and the kind of rule of thumb is when your shadow is shorter than you are, that's when it's considered direct sunlight, then it's possible that you're not getting enough vitamin D. Also, if we have dark skin, if someone is over 50, 51, there's other kind of factors that we might need to supplement with vitamin D. So in that case, we want to supplement with vitamin D3. Again, you can have your levels checked to see, do I need to supplement with this? Or you could just supplement with 1,000 IUs. And again, for most people, that's not going to be too much, almost never. But again, all of these, if you're going to add something new, always check with your health professional, registered dietitian, a pharmacist is a good resource, or your physician, but somebody who knows supplements and can kind of help you see what's best for you. So the Nordic Naturals, one gummy serving has that 1,000 IUs. So when we look at what's typical that we would recommend just across the board, kind of average dosage of vitamin D, it's vitamin D3 and it's 1,000 IUs. And this Nordic Naturals, one little gummy is giving us that 1,000 IUs of vitamin D3. It also just so happens that these are zero sugar. So they are sweetened with plant-based natural sweetener. They are colored with fruit and vegetable juices, fruit and naturally colored. And there's nothing artificial in there. There's no artificial sweeteners. There's also no sugar. So Nordic Naturals also has a DHA gummy. And DHA is how it's marketed on the front, but they also actually have EPA. DHA and EPA are the active components of fish oil. So when we look at fish oil and we see that the benefits of fish oil, it seems to help with inflammation. It seems to help with mood, potentially help with depression. The key components of fish oil that appear to be effective in those benefits are specifically EPA and DHA components of fish oil. I say that because there's other types of omega-3s that are not fish oil based, but it's this EPA, DHA that are so beneficial. And typically, I also recommend about 1,000 milligrams a day of fish oil made up of EPA and DHA. So typically, I would say if you're looking at a fish oil supplement of any type, chewable or not, we want to see on the front, it might say 1,000 milligrams of fish oil, but we really want to turn it over. How much EPA, how much DHA? Those two combined, we want to aim for 1,000 milligrams a day. So the Nordic Naturals, it's actually children's DHA, but I would say I don't have any problems if adults took this also. It has 500 milligrams of EPA and DHA, and that's for one gummy. So for kids, one gummy is going to give them about 500 total of EPA and DHA, which is great for kids. Adults, we mentioned aiming for that 1,000. So you would just take two gummies. They're 10 calories each, zero sugar. They are colored with things like paprika extract. They're sweetened with stevia, natural plant-based sweeteners. So no artificial sweeteners, no artificial colors. Each one's 10 calories, zero sugar, and it's given us that blend of about 500 milligrams of DHA plus EPA. Still under this Nordic Naturals umbrella that we were talking about, again, I was impressed with the potency of these. So that one gummy serving of vitamin D was all we need. For the ones that are marketed as children's DHA, for kids, one would be great. For adults, two would give us what we need. So the third that they have is a little lower potency. So that D3, the DHA, those are impressively high potency. The third I'm going to share with y'all, it's a little bit lower potency, but still pretty decent. And this is curcumin. It's their zero sugar curcumin gummies. So we know that turmeric, it's a spice and it has anti-inflammatory properties among other benefits. Well, curcumin is that active compound in turmeric. And a 2 gummy serving of this Nordic Naturals curcumin gummies, 2 little gummies gives us about 200 milligrams of curcumin extract. Typically, I would recommend about 500. That doesn't mean I necessarily want you to take 4 or 5 of these gummies. I would say cap it at 2, but that gives you just like that extra little edge that consistently, if you were going to have that daily, it'd be that little consistent intake of curcumin, whereas you might not be getting turmeric on that regular basis. Of course, with all of these, vitamin D, DHA, curcumin, or really any other gummy that we're talking about on shelves, we can get it through food. A lot of times, though, the amount we would have to eat to get it through food would just be exorbitantly high quantities. So in that case, a supplement might be best. And in many cases, a single capsule may give us far more than what we're going to get through the gummies. So as I mentioned, Nordic Naturals, I like their products a lot. The zero sugar line, again, I don't necessarily need a gummy to be zero sugar in order to really like it. It just so happened that their zero sugar line also had a really high potency. For most of the gummies, if you do find some that have that high potency, again, going back to a website like WebMD, which for free shares the dosage information, the how to take it, the benefits, the interactions it might have with medications or other precautions to take. WebMD is a great resource for that. pulling in information from other websites that are typically paid. So that's when we're saying, okay, find your potency. WebMD is going to be great there. And then looking to see how much do these products have. Also, how much food would I have to get these things? But a lot of these that we're talking about, vitamin D3, it's really hard to get enough vitamin D through food. Fish oil, if you're one that you're like, oh my God, I eat salmon like 4 or 5 times a week, well, we probably don't need to supplement with fish oil or any type of oily fish, sardines, you name it, on a regular basis. We probably don't need to supplement with it. But if you know that your intake of those oilier fish is really not that frequent, then we might want to look at supplementing with those. So again, looking at your diet, are you lacking in calcium? Are you lacking in the oilier fatty fish? Are you indoors a lot? Do you have darker skin for the vitamin D? We sort of need to assess, number one, what products do we really need? What are we maybe going to have a harder time getting through diet or sunlight or these other things that we talked about? A source, finding out how much do I need? So if we do think it's something that we need, or again, sometimes it's not that we absolutely must have it, but supplementing with it's not going to be harmful. So you can kind of file it under that every little bit helps. So something like collagen, I would put in there, that D3, I would put in that. But the bottom line is to see, based on your intake, what are you typically consuming on a regular basis? If you're a huge milk drinker or calcium fortified almond milk drinker, you may not need to supplement with additional calcium. But if you're not, and you don't get a lot of calcium through natural food sources in your diet, then you might want to look at supplementing with calcium. So again, it's sort of assessing your diet. What might you be lacking? Do we need to supplement with it? Familiarize yourself with what's the typical dosage of that product. And then taking that to the store whenever you're actually looking at these, or online or wherever you're looking at supplements, and then seeing what's the best bet. If it's a gummy, if it's a chewable, if it's a pill, if it's a powder, whatever it might be. All of this also, I would say, can feel overwhelming because it's a lot of everything I'm telling y'all. I'm telling you kind of like the do's and don'ts of when you're looking at the label of these gummy supplements. But to even determine all these other things, I'm telling you to do your research. Do you need it? And if so, what's that typical dosage? Because again, there's a laundry list of those that we could cover. It's literally, if you go into a supplement store and you see just those shelves and you're looking at all the different options of supplements, we simply can't cover that in this podcast. So good resources, registered dietitians. I've talked about our dietitians at Ochsner Fitness Center before. If you're anywhere in Louisiana, you can meet with them. You can meet with them through telemedicine. It's through virtual visits. So I'll put the information, the email to contact to get information about scheduling or about how the sessions work. If you're outside of Louisiana, you can go to eatright.org, and that is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. There's a Find a Dietitian feature, so I'll link to that as well if you're outside of Louisiana. But that's something that working with someone to kind of assess your diet, assess where your current status is, and what do we need, I guess that's actually going to be our first step. If you've already done that though, and you kind of know what products you feel like you're well versed in this and you need to take these products, then you can make that educated decision of if it's to gummy or not to gummy. So lots here. It's a really simple, kind of easy topic because really when it comes to the gummies, it's pretty straightforward. What are the ingredients? Does it have any of the artificial food dyes? Does it have any other kind of maybe wacky ingredients in the ingredient list that you don't want in your product? And then what's the dosage? What's the potency? So that's the easy part. The harder part is deciding which of these you actually need to take. So with that, I'll include the links that I talked about in the show notes of this episode. And I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. And join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.